You're listening to Let's Talk Sustainable Business.
Hello, my name is Uwe Schulte, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to this podcast in our series, Let's Talk Sustainable Business. It's brought to you by the Conference Board Global Sustainability Center. Today, I will continue my conversation with João Paulo Ferreira, CEO of Natura Latin America. We're going to talk about their sustainability ambition until 2030. Before we get started, as we are recording this podcast during the COVID-19 crisis, we would like to let our hearts go out to those suffering in this crisis and express our support to all of those who look after those in need. Let me first introduce our guest to you. João Paulo graduated in electrical engineering from the University of Sao Paulo, USP, and has an executive MBA from the University of Michigan in the United States. He worked at Unilever for 20 years, and João Paulo is the CEO of Latin America for Natura & Co. Previously, Previously CEO of Natura, joined the business in 2009 as VP of Operations and Logistics. If you want to hear more about him personally, I refer you back to the podcast we recorded a week ago. Welcome back, João Paulo. I really enjoyed learning from you in our last podcast how purpose has driven Natura over the last 50 years and basically from success to success. You shared already also some needs to adjust, but all in all, it was a very impressive journey.
It's great to be back, Uwe. It was a wonderful journey indeed. I keep reminding people, how unusual this was and very unlikely successful journey from a Brazilian-born cosmetics company in this very international world of cosmetics that was born talking about nature ingredients and nature in 1969 when the world was fascinated by synthetics, right? And that chose direct selling as its main sales and distribution instrument. So coming from that starting point and reaching the now this magnitude of the Natura & Co business that includes Natura, The Body Shop, Avon, and Aesop, in one of the largest cosmetics companies in the world, it was indeed a fascinating journey.
Indeed, and it is also for me quite interesting that in your documents you don't even talk about purpose as so many people do these days. You talk about your reason for being, and that indicates that you have really deeply and engaged in that, and we discussed that last time. This time, I want to look at another application of your purpose, and that is that you recently published your Sustainability Vision 2030, which you call Commitment to Life. And I understand it contains 3 major elements. Can you talk a little bit about that commitment to life?
Sure. But before I get into this, I think it's worth giving you some background on sustainability for Natura and how it's ingrained into its business model. So at Natura, we like to say that we like to transform social environmental challenges into business opportunities. And that is really essential, because it's not sustainability for us is not a toll to be paid afterwards when we do good business, and then we're gonna try and remediate the damage that we may have caused, right? So it's actually about transforming social environmental challenges into business opportunities. So it needs to be embedded in the value proposition of the business, right? And it's also an engine for innovation. Because when you set yourself to that task of transforming those into business opportunity, the only way that can be done is if it's a goal considered when we are beginning any new endeavor, any new project, and developing any new product, right? So it is a source of significant innovation for us, not only in products, but also in the way we commercialize and our business model. Right. Now, for that reason, we keep raising our own bar, looking at the best examples around the world, and we learn from academia, we learn from other companies as much as we can. We have a continuous probe looking at what is happening around the world and the best available knowledge. And in 2014, Natura launched its 2050 sustainability vision. That was at the same time we became the first listed company, publicly listed company, ever to become a B Corp. And then we set our goals to 2050. Of course, when you think about that, I mean, we were very ambitious, and those ambitions included many things yet to be discovered. Anyway, that has been pushing the Natura journey itself. Now, as we evolved from Natura into a larger group, now called Natura & Co., including the 4 businesses, the 4 brands, we felt the need to make sure that all of the businesses, all of the brands would be aligned in those ambitions of creating positive social environmental impact for society. So we look at each individual businesses, look at their starting points, and set ourselves a goal to say, okay, how can we move together, yet acknowledging that we are in different stages, but how can we move together, transfer knowledge, and get to a meaningful position and most impactful, given the size of the new group, as fast as we can. And that's when we decided to launch the 2030 Natura & Co. vision, already including Avon. And that vision is based on 3 key pillars, if you want, and that was named our commitment to life. One is to do with fighting climate change and protecting the Amazon, right? How we can positively contribute to that subject. The second one is to do with human rights and actually what we stated as becoming humankind, right? And the third commitment is to do with circularity and regeneration, right? So if we could summarize this, is think of a shift from scarcity to abundance, and think of a shift from remediation to regeneration. And this is what we're trying to capture in our 2030 vision.
That it is a very impressive ambition, and I think it merits a closer look. When I looked it up, 2 things really intrigued me.
Mm-hmm.
One was you talk about zero deforestation for the Amazon region,
Mm-hmm.
and you talked about science-based targets for biodiversity. Can you explain that a bit more? Because these are quite broad targets.
Yeah. So starting with the Amazon, and of course the Amazon is very close to our business. 100% of the Natura products are formulated with at least one ingredient coming from the Amazonian biodiversity, which is transformed through science into very powerful cosmetics actives. So over more than 20 years of a continuous and presence in the Amazon, whereby we developed a close relationship with more than 30 communities, um, um, understanding their needs, understanding the richness of the ingredients, sharing benefits, uh, not paying not only for the ingredients themselves, but also for access and for traditional associated traditional knowledge and so on and so forth. We've learned that that activity helps protecting the rainforest. And that in itself is a powerful insight, because we are combining economic development, economic growth, with environmental protection and social development at the same time. By the way, we also measure the social development of those communities. So our history proves that that is totally possible. It's totally possible to combine economic prosperity with environmental protection. And we measured those in those communities, and our activity helps protecting almost 2 million hectares of forests. Now, it's still a drop in the ocean. It is still a drop in the ocean. So the only way we can approach such a systemic problem is in collaboration. Is in collaboration with governments, you know, local, state governments, federal governments, agencies, NGOs, the private sector, and the communities themselves. So what we are proposing ourselves, given that we are known to be a reliable actor in the Amazon that promotes dialogues and establishes bridges amongst all the agents. So what we are proposing ourselves is, of course, we will increase our positive impact, our own positive impact there. But moreover, we want to increase our role as a catalyst, a bridge amongst all those participants to promote systemic actions to protect the Amazon and zero the deforestation. That is our ambition, Uwe.
You know, when two things come to mind. One is the drop in the ocean, of course, because when you live outside Brazil, in Europe, or in the US, you hear bad news about the Amazon. And so it's important to understand the impact that you want to do beyond the work you've already been doing. And I think it is important to understand why are you saying it makes sense for you to become a catalyst, an advocate, drive the whole systemic change rather than just do your bit?
Well, there are many reasons for that. One is that has a lot to do with our, as you said, as we started the conversation, our reason for being. So one of our beliefs, the sixth belief of our company, is one of sustainability, that we have to promote the maximal well-being of this generation, yet increasing the likelihood of an even higher well-being in the generations to come. And that is a central element. Climate change is a central element for the generations to come. So that fits into our purpose. The second one is that one of our key competitive advantage that was built over the years is our deep knowledge of the Amazon and how to translate that biodiversity and richness into unique products. So, and there's the third element. I think, we were Brazilian born, so there's no way we can not participate into this. So that is the main reasons. But over the years, that became a sort of intangible asset of the company. So we are um, in constant contact. We are searched by mining companies, the agro business, uh, beef producers, uh, extractivist communities, NGOs. They all come to us as uh, a group that can promote dialogues that otherwise wouldn't happen naturally. So I think it became also a duty, uh, not only a source of our competitive advantage, but it became a true duty for us.
Yeah, you already uh, touched on it. My second question was around, I'm very curious about science-based targets for biodiversity.
Sure. Well, biodiversity is I think is an area that still requires a lot of understanding. Of course, that there are life cycle analysis methods developed for many years ago already that keeps improving, but the biodiversity itself is not totally understood. The systemic impact of that. Um, we've we've implemented practices to not only to honor but to reward for biodiversity even before the Nagoya Protocol on on biodiversity, and we helped shaping even the Brazilian law, working with the government for more than a decade to shape the regulation around that theme. And because we've been working for so long around that theme, we know that the regulation is still very poor because it fails to monetize all the externalities related to biodiversity,
Hmm.
right? It fails to monetize. And we've been working with other suppliers in experiments whereby by protecting a certain environment, you see how that whole ecosystem regenerates. And regeneration, what is the value of that? I mean, we need to create mechanisms to value biodiversity so that we can level the playing field. So that is a key element to bridge between environmentalists and governments and private sector is that we, in the end, we need to translate all the social environmental externalities into the balance sheet of companies and governments and so on and so forth. And we reckon that biodiversity is one that's perhaps so complicated that is still lagging behind in comparison to, say, carbon footprint, right?
Yeah. But on the other hand, the COVID crisis has highlighted that biodiversity was ignored for too long, and we're putting so much stress on that system, and we're paying the price. So I'm very glad that we have some pioneers driving that subject, and it will increase in importance. In the light of time, I wanted to at least briefly cover the other two commitments of
Sure.
yours. One is really interesting. You call it you want to turn human rights into humankind. What do you mean by that?
I think what we've been witnessing through this crisis, I think, is the very negative impact of inequality, right? So there's enough wealth generated in the world that if it could be properly equally spread, everyone will have a decent and dignifying life. So the issue that I think we're going to face in the years to come is not one of increasing the wealth that is generated anymore. Is one of access and distribution. So how will more people access to that wealth and how it will distribute? Otherwise, we're going to see more and more pervasive effects of the inequality. And this is an area where we think we can contribute a lot, primarily because in our business model, we operate with 6 million independent representatives and consultants around the world, and we measure uh, the human development index in that community, and we actually stir our business model to try and increase that human development index by saying not only the commercialization of goods, of course, but we distribute education and scholarships through that network, health benefits, and so on. And we reckon we can increase that in the years to come, right? So the primary reason we do that is, yes, we can improve significantly the standards of living of our own huge network of consultants and reps. But more, and of course, you multiply that number by 4, given the number of people in their households, and you see the ripple effect happening there. But not only that, I mean, these people talk to 250 million people around the world, in sometimes in very remote areas. So they can be social agents, and we think we are not there only to transact goods or cosmetics, but there's a flow of affection and of care and of love that we have been promoting, and we reckon we can do more. So that is what behind that statement there.
And at the end of the day, I guess it's good for business at the same time.
Of course, it has to be. We are for profit, right? And it's all about maximizing economic, social, and environmental results at the same time. And in our history, we learned that we move all those 3 variables in the same direction. And it's going to be good for everyone. It captures, it generates more value, captures more value, and distributes that value in a fairer way.
Understood. Let's look at the third commitment, and you talk about circularity and regeneration. What are the investments and collaborative actions you look at in these regenerative solutions?
So that is an interesting one. So we move from for offsetting, and Natura is being carbon neutral for many years, and now we are talking about insetting, and not only in terms of carbon, but solid waste and biodegradability and so on and so forth. So it requires new science, really. It requires research and new science, and the way we do research is through open innovation. So more than 50% of our innovation comes from universities, suppliers, research centers around the world collaborating with us. And actually, very recently, we ran a call for regenerative solutions, and we received hundreds of proposals from around the world in that area. So we are working also with groups like Ellen MacArthur to help us with channeling some of the science that is coming to that area. And we are deploying hundreds of millions of dollars in right now in the years to come in that area. And we truly think that we can become carbon positive in the near future. There's still a work to be done with the companies that more recently joined Natura & Co. Avon, the Body Shop, looking at carbon footprint, solid waste footprint, water footprint. But we are catching up very fast and moving to circularity and regeneration.
Now, these are great ambitions, and these commitments are actually quite concrete, so it's measurable and transparent. But there is the big question. We're going through this huge economic crisis now. Will this hold?
Oh yeah, no doubt. It's it has to. It's what differentiates us. As I said, we are for profit, so we are looking of products and proposals and offerings and ways of doing things that are ahead of other groups. We always want others to catch up in some of these areas because that's good for the planet. But we are searching for some competitive advantage here, and this is the area where we chose to differentiate. So yes, that will hold.
So thank you so much, Jean-Paulo. This is very inspiring. It's giving a lot of food for thought. A number of these things merit a deeper dive, and maybe we find another opportunity, for example, to go even deeper into the biodiversity subject, which is also very close to my heart, and I think it's been ignored for too long. And I think you've just given us an example of a company purpose in action. So thank you so much for your interesting conversation.
My pleasure, Uwe. We are happy to have you or any one of your listeners visiting any of our operations anytime. The Body Shop, Aesop, Avon, Natura. We are glad to collaborate in any manner you can think of.
Thank you very, very much. And if you, your listeners, have enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe to our podcast series or explore the entire catalog of podcast programming from the Conference Board by visiting our website at tcb.org/podcast. And we would appreciate your feedback, be it critical on the podcast we've already aired, or whether you want to make suggestions for future podcasts. Anything is really, really welcome, and you just write to us on the email address sustainability@tcb.org. Thank you for listening, and be seeing you soon.
That was Let's Talk Sustainable Business.